So
Moved.
Second.
Not quite.
Operator error.
Moved by Commissioner Strike, seconded by Mr. Looney. Sorry, Commissioner Spinelli, you lost out on your chance. Can we call for a vote? Or is there any questions on the matter or discussion? See no discussion, call for a vote. It's a motion to approve the minutes. And that motion passes. Next order of business, disclosures.
I have none.
None.
Oh, sorry. I also have none. Commissioner Looney,
None?
Commissioner Spinelli,
Nothing to disclose.
Commissioner Anderson.
None.
And next item of business is the informational item case 2019-0050. Can we get our report?
Thank you. There are no reports for the informational items, but if the commission wishes to speak to them or discuss, if that's the will of the commission, they may do so. And obviously staff and project representatives are here for clarification or information if needed.
Does anyone have any questions on the first informational item? I'll go ahead and ask the question then. In regarding the Cordova Street and 48th Avenue updates, I couldn't quite remember correctly, but are either of those the roads that the old Rock Gym were located on?
I personally am unaware if that's the case.
Okay. I was just wondering because it seems like a lot of those areas got a lot more traffic when that was there, but since it's moved, I wasn't sure if that was taken into account when this was put together.
I haven't seen reference to that in the project document so far. That would seem to be a pretty big generator if that were the case. But
Okay. Thank you.
And also just to add, this is a context-sensitive solutions concept report, and then as most of you probably know, it'll be back for a design study report and plans in hand study as well. So it's 35% design and then about 65% design. So this is an informational item for the Planning and Zoning Commission to discuss the preliminary concepts or maybe decide if the public hearing is warranted for the next phases.
Commissioner Anderson?
Yeah, I think that I read through it, but I can't remember right now. What did it say about bicycle and pedestrian facilities?
So for pedestrian facilities, there's been overwhelming consensus, at least as far as the public outreach goes. From my understanding, for sidewalks on at least one side, Title 21 calls for sidewalks on both sides unless it's an industrial district. So sidewalks will definitely be provided in some form. For bicycle facilities, it's not listed on the Anchorage Bicycle Plan, the 2010 Bicycle Plan. So there are no bicycle facilities currently proposed, and the project team has reported that there's no. Is the project team here? Yeah. Oh. So actually, I'll call up Matt Edge.
Thank you. My name is Matt Edge. I'm with CRW Engineering Group. I'm the design engineer for the 48th Avenue and Cordova Street reconstruction project. As stated, the Anchorage Bicycle Plan does not identify this as a corridor for bicycle traffic, so there's no current plans or to include specific bicycle facilities in this area. We haven't really identified alternatives for construction at this point right now. The concept report is just there to document public comment on the project, so we're in the process of developing specific alternatives.
Is the right-of-way width limit the amount of pedestrian facility or bike facility, or what's the limiting?
The right-of-way width is 60 feet on the entire corridor. There's definitely challenges, especially along 48th Avenue, with current use, active use of parking, on-street parking, and businesses along there that could make bicycle facilities challenging. It's not prohibitive, but definitely some serious challenges.
Thanks. I think that was my only real comment after reviewing it was that, if the right-of-way width isn't a limiting factor or use of the shoulders for businesses, for parking or whatnot, that if there was a way to provide as much pedestrian and bicycle facilities as possible would be maybe a good thing to consider.
Commissioner Robinson?
Yeah, I would just say as you move forward, with Mr. Anderson's comment, I would also say clearly you just stated it and it's documented that there's quite a lot of on-street parking that's used. I think that's true in a lot of cases, and I've seen us take parking away in certain instances to provide for some of the bike amenities and so forth. And I think you just have to take that balanced approach. Can you get one pedestrian safe access route through there, and can you preserve as much of that parking as possible? I think it's important for this neighborhood. Thanks.
Commissioner Looney?
I guess I am a little remiss in that earlier we talked about disclosures. I did not say anything about disclosure. I thought this was just an informational item. I didn't think there was going to be much discussion, but I am working with the same company. I was hoping to think of a good question to grill Mr. Edge on, but so I do work with the same company, and I'm involved with this project slightly.
I believe since this is just an informational item that no disclosures are necessary at this time.
Okay.
Thank you, though. Any further discussion or questions? Commissioner Strike?
And I guess this is just a general remark, and it may already be covered, and that is the concern on the 48th Avenue, especially lighting the whole way between the Old Sword Highway and actually goes all the way to C Street. And I know we've got a large vacant lot at the corner of Cordova and 48th that's planned for future development, I believe, by Providence.
Providence owns both the St. Elias Hospital and that large vacant lot. We met with them maybe 2 months ago. They didn't have any concrete plans for development, or they don't know what they're going to do with the lot, but it used to be a long-term care facility that was demolished.
But with the traffic that you get from the area west of Cordova from C Street with all the hotels that are backed up there and so forth going into, I believe, then the Old Sword Highway becomes a conduit. So 48th Street
Yes,
will get used.
Yeah, both 48th Avenue and Cordova Street are collector roads, so any reconstruction would require us to upgrade it to collector standards, which includes full roadway lighting along the entire corridor.
Including the lighting?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
But that would end at Cordova Street. It would not, I'm not sure what's there between Cordova and A Street or C Street there. Our project ends at Cordova Street on 48th Avenue. Okay.
Any further questions or comments? All right, then just confirming with staff, we don't need to take an action on this?
No action is necessary.
All right. Thank you for your time. Moving on to our second informational item of the day, case 2019-0053, context-sensitive solutions transportation project site plan review. Any discussion or question or comments from the commission? I guess I had a question. I know this is just an informational item, and you're proposing, the plan seems to be promoting two alternatives, but preferring one at this time. Are you looking for the Planning and Zoning Commission to kind of further endorse one of the alternatives?
No, the Planning and Zoning Commission at this stage doesn't need to endorse any alternative. In recent discussions with the project team, the project is further along than is typical in a project that's in the context-sensitive solutions process. So I believe the project is now at about 70% design, and it's typically at this stage less than 35%. So the project team and I are going to coordinate on what the best next steps are in terms of going to the design study report, the DSR, and the plans in hand stage. So it's just to be aware that it is a little further along than most projects, but right now, at this moment, there's no deliberation or no decision point for the PZC.
And then another question I had was regarding the pedestrian and non-motorized access. I know that you guys are further along in this process than is normal, but did there seem to be, I was just kind of interested in, you had a chart on page 41, which seemed to kind of weigh whether one was an alternative over the other one. And I was just wondering, from a safety perspective, was one of those alternatives preferred?
I'll turn it over to the project team for that one.
Good evening. I'm Joe Taylor with Lounsbury and Associates. I'm the consultant project manager on this. And in answer to the question, safety was considered. It was a topic that was weighed in the tight diamond alternative and the roundabout alternative. And safety is thought to be advantageous from the roundabout perspective. It was one of the items that we considered.
Thank you. Are there any other questions or comments from commission members? Mr. Hodges?
I just wanted to add briefly that this is not a continuation, but it's originally was part of the Seward Highway reconstruction project further south. And so this originally, I believe, was started in 2013 as a separate concept report, DSR, plans in hand report. So this is related to a previous project. It was just not originally implemented because it was taken off of that original scope. So it's kind of now coming back as a separate project in a way, but also very much related to the previous effort.
And if I could clarify for that, this project was part of the Diamond to Dowling reconstruction project that was just built in 2017, 2018. And that project did come before this body, and it looked at an interchange alternative selection process. It considered the same interchange alternatives that were considered on this process, made a slightly different recommendation. The department did not construct that improvement as part of the improvements that were constructed the last 2 years, and so it came back for another look. And this is effectively the second phase or a breakout phase of that previous project.
Thank you. Commissioner Looney?
Actually, it's pretty interesting to see the public involvement for this project. It's one of the first times the webpage had I think a survey asking for people's opinion and looking at the different alternatives. Was it essentially like a straw vote to see which direction to go? And do you recall what the result of that was?
I've been doing public involvement on this corridor for a decade, and this was the first time that we had done that. We collected tremendous feedback very favorable, actually, from the public on roundabouts. There's a sense that that particular roundabout's there today. People are pretty excited about that. We got a lot of votes in favor of the roundabout.
I know things have changed. When they first went in, you probably would have heard a different result at that time.
We've been extremely pleased with, we met with EMS and the Anchorage Fire Department. They were also very complimentary of roundabouts from a safety standpoint, braking traffic, giving cars places to go as they're trying to get through those particular alternatives. So it was actually very favorable. You never get 100%. You know, there's always detractors or folks that prefer other things, but we had a lot of positive roundabout feedback for sure.
Any other questions or comments from the commission? All right, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Moving on to item D, the consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda by Commissioner Anderson? Is there a second by Commissioner Robinson? Any discussion or items wishing to be pulled? Seeing none of that, call for vote. And that motion passes. Now, moving on to item G, public hearings, case 2019-0024, and hold with me here because I haven't let off too many of the public hearings, but I believe I now set out the rules for the public hearings. All right, thank you. So the procedure by which the public may speak to the commission at its meeting is as follows. After the staff presentation is completed on public hearing items, the chair will ask for public testimony on the issue. Persons who wish to testify will follow the time limits established in the commission rules of procedure. Petitioners, including all of their representatives, will get 10 minutes. Part of this time may be reserved for rebuttals. Representatives of groups such as community councils, PTAs, and other organizations will get 5 minutes. Individuals will receive 3 minutes. When your testimony is complete, you may be asked questions by the commission. You may only testify once on any issue unless questioned by the commission. An individual may have appeal rights relating to any action the Planning and Zoning Commission takes, except for commission recommendations to the Assembly, which are not appealable. Appeals must be filed with the clerk's office within 20 days after approval by the Planning and Zoning Commission of the resolution, which is the commission's final decision. A fee for the appeal is required at the time of filing. Can we hear the report?
Yes, Madam Chair. So Raspberry Center LLC is requesting to amend a special limitation on the B1B zoning at Raspberry Center subdivision lots 2A-1 and 2A-2. The very last page of your packet is a resolution in support of the petitioner's request that was adopted by the Sand Lake Community Council. That's on page 64 of your packet. There are 9 approval criteria for a rezone. This application follows that process. Approval criteria number 1 is met. Amending the special limitation to remove the 25-foot building height limitation for residential development will allow additional dwelling units to be built. Anchorage 2040 estimates that Anchorage will have a shortage of approximately 7,900 dwelling units through 2040. This amendment helps address the gap between community-wide housing needs and the availability of land capacity. It also helps get towards our targeted goals for dwelling units per acre in centers like neighborhood centers like this. Approval criteria number 2, Anchorage 2040 land use plan map identifies the site as neighborhood center. The B1B district is implementing zoning for that land use designation, implementing zoning district for that land use designation. Anchorage 2040 states that neighborhood centers, residential buildings may have up to 4 stories. Anchorage 2020 supports the request by the applicant with policies 5, 7, and 11. Approval criteria number 3 is met. The B1B district is intended for consumer-oriented businesses, which serve the needs of the surrounding community. The district is intended for small, compact sites near intersections of streets designated for collector, arterial, or greater capacity on the official streets and highways plan. Approval criteria number 4, the standard is met. The B1B district is a small-scale commercial district that allows residential development and mixed-use development too. The petition site will continue to be compatible with the surrounding zoning and development intensities with this change to one special limitation. The site borders the Holiday gas station to the north, Northwood Street to the east, and the residences at Northwood Apartments to the south. There are 2 residential lots west of the petition site, of which one is vacant and the other one is a single-family home. The subject property is surrounded by PLI zoning to the east, RO to the south, R1 to the west, and B1A to the north. Approval criteria number 5 is met. The official streets and highways plan identifies Northwood Street as a Class 2 minor arterial. All of these streets are constructed to municipal standard. Northwood Street has sidewalks on both sides of the street. Raspberry Road is a major arterial and is constructed, and Minnesota Drive is a freeway. Approval criteria number 6 is met. Development of the property will be subject to Title 21 site design requirements, as well as a building permit in the review process with that. Approval criteria number 7 is met. The petition site is relatively flat land, and both multifamily housing and commercial uses are already present in the immediate vicinity. The site has good access to Northwood Street, but the location of the driveway will be determined by a traffic impact analysis, which is under review with the traffic engineer. The underlying plat contains a 44-foot wide building setback along the west property boundary, which forces the building to be located away from the R1 residential zoning to the west. Within the building setback is a platted buffer landscape easement, which is intended to buffer the residential district from businesses along Northwood Street. All development of the property will be subject to Title 21 site design requirements. Approval criteria number 8, the standard is met. Special limitation restricting building height for all uses would be modified. The change would remove the special limitation for residential uses. Approval criteria 9, this does not create a split zone lot. The department is recommending approval of the petitioner's request to amend the special limitation. The department is, so pages 7 and 8 of your packet include a draft assembly ordinance, and the commission will make a recommendation to the assembly. Thank you.
Any questions or comments for staff? Commissioner Anderson?
Yeah, just one question. If you can comment on approval criteria 3. The rezoning is generally consistent with the zoning district, and it says that the purpose of the B1B is consumer-oriented business, and the exemption is being made for residential. So can you just comment on residential and B1B?
You know, I'm not sure the derivation of the, that's a good question. We tend, in our commercial zoning districts, we very strongly tend to see a commercial development and not residential development. This is going the other way. When these purpose statements in Title 21 were crafted, I mean, we hadn't seen a lot of residential in a commercial zone. It was always commercial in a commercial zone, and commercial trying to scoop up residential zones too. But it is a permitted by right use in that district to have multifamily residential, and mixed use development is possible as well. So it's consistent if that, yeah.
No, thank you. Thanks for the clarification.
And can we hear from the petitioner?
Good evening. My name's Sean Debenham. Debenham's Debenham. I'm one of the owners of Raspberry Center, LLC, and we own the apartment building called the Residences at Northwood, just south of the petition site. and we developed those apartments a couple of years ago. And so we're looking to go ahead and develop some more apartments in the 2 acres that we own between our previous site and the Holiday gas station, which is the site that you guys are currently looking at. In order to do that, we need to be able to increase our density a little bit by putting additional stories on the building. 2 stories isn't feasible for us. And so we're requesting that the special limitations be changed, which allows a by right height of B1B, which I believe is 40 feet. I'd like to use the rest of my time for rebuttal, if there's any rebuttal.
All right, thank you. Any questions or comments for the petitioner? Commissioner Robinson?
Thank you, through the chair. Do you have any sense of, you said 2 stories is not high enough. Do you have any sense of, are you going 3 or can you get 4 with the height limit in the B1B?
We can get 4, so we'll more than likely go 4.
Go 4, okay.
Yeah.
Great, thank you.
Any other questions? I actually had one question. I was wondering how many people showed up at this community council meeting, because in your summary, I believe it was 62, but then when I saw the Sand Lake Community Council resolution, it said 150 votes were for.
I believe they had some proxy votes that they can take, so you don't have to actually be there. You can give it to somebody else, and then somebody else can vote your proxy vote for you. So the number that I gave, I wasn't aware of how many proxy votes were out there, so I just counted up how many people were there, how many people said yes, and how many people said no, and put that on mine. But when the official resolution came in, the president of the Sand Lake Community Council included, I believe, this is my theory, that they included the proxy votes.
Staff, do you know if that's correct?
I've never heard about any of that, but I don't attend that community council.
Yeah, I was
I
just
don't know.
curious, because I don't think that's how the community council in my neighborhood works, and so it was just a little. All right.
Yeah,
I'm just guessing. I don't know for sure, but my application is how many people actually were there and raised or did not raise their hand. So,
All right, thank you. We'll now open the matter for public comments. So members of the public, if you would want to come up, state your name for the record and whether or not you're representing an organization or just on behalf of yourself. And you can pull that microphone down.
Shorty. Oopsie, sorry. Hi, Marianne Flowers, and I'm against the height expansion. I was born and raised in Anchorage, Alaska, 57, so before statehood, and I've lived in that same subdivision since 1983. And I was part of that task force, by the way, that put all those restrictions. I went against Wells Fargo. It was MBA back in the day, Ed Rasmussen. And those were, if you look on a map, they used to be wetlands. That was all, I mean, I was there before Northwood was there. And so NBA wanted to turn it into a commercial venture. They said no residential people would ever live there because of the corner. You know, they packaged it up like that. So I joined the task force, and you know, little give and take, and put the restrictions down. Since we thought, okay, it's going to be commercial, down to 25 feet, and buffer zone, and the fence, and then we had them make plants around, and that was that way for years and years and years and years. And then the Holiday came in, and then so you know, they did, you know, no alcohol, no, you know, none of that stuff. I'm sorry, I'm not an eloquent speaker, so I'm very nervous. And then there was a man who owned the lot where the Debenham Properties bought, but the man that owned the property he owned a church, and he told our neighborhood and that they were going to put a church there, and that he needed to be a certain height. And everybody bought off on it, and he actually didn't build a church. He sort of flipped it and left town, and Debenham Properties brought it and put the residence condo or apartment complex, which it's nice. It's a nice unit. So when Debenham Properties sent out the thing saying they wanted to make it a 4-story, I mean, most of the houses have been there before mine even, and I've had my same core neighbors from one end to the other, and they're aging out. Some are in their 70s, 80s, some have had strokes, so that's why there's not a big attendance, and they're not, they don't like to go up and talk to in the public. And my one neighbor, Mike, who went to the community council, the reason it was so many people there is because it was the FEMA people there. And it was an abundance of people there, and people that were like talking about what they weren't even around, they weren't even in my neighbors. So we're like, wow, they're very vocal for somebody that doesn't live within our neighborhood here, So from my standpoint, I mean, I know progress, I get it, but 4 stories, I think, needs to be reevaluated. It would eclipse our houses. I mean, the one part that back in '83 when I bought, it was just raw property, and you saw the mountains, and, they've been kind of over time eroding, but it's like now 48 feet, that's huge. And I live in a ranch-style house, and the majority of the people there are, modest income. What does that mean? Oh,
That's the end of the time.
okay. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Oh, there is a question from Commissioner Strike.
It
Okay.
looked like you had some comments regarding the attendance
Yeah,
that were present at the meeting.
right.
What was your impression of how many folks were there?
There was a lot of people, but like I said, the majority of them, there was a lot of people for the FEMA, and it was a action-packed agenda that they had, that they even had to kind of push a cannabis, somebody wanted to do a cannabis, so they had many items on their agenda, so I think a lot of tenants were not there for the property, I saw the ones because I know my neighbors. It was just myself and Mike, who's handicapped. He's had some industrial accidents, so he couldn't even talk. And Mrs. Rose she didn't let him talk either, and he was scared to talk too. So and there was so many vocal people that he just got lost in the wash. And afterwards, he was so frustrated because he didn't get to talk, so that was kind of sad. I felt bad for Mike.
Thank you.
Also, just to follow up on that, do you know if your community council has rules on that you have to have attended a previous meeting to vote, or?
I would have thought so. I'm not, I work Monday through Friday, 8 to 5, so going to that one was specific for the Debenham, rezone or special limitations. And there was just an abundance of people from everywhere for their own agenda. So when they all voted, I don't think it was vetted, to tell you the truth. I think it was just, people were like, what, I don't think it was vetted. There was no formal process to say, I'm from Muldoon, I'm going to vote here just because it sounds like a good idea.
All right, thank you.
Do I just go sit down now?
Yeah. Any other members of the public wishing to speak on the matter? All right, then, Petitioner, can we hear any rebuttal that you have?
Yeah, just to clarify a couple of things. When they did the vote at the Sand Lake Community Council, the Sand Lake president did read their bylaws and explain that you had to be a member of the Sand Lake Community Council in order to vote. That was before the vote happened, and then they took the vote, and not everybody that was there voted. I think it was fairly legit. I don't think there was anything nefarious going on there. Second is the residences in Northwood, the apartment complex that we built before, it's at about 40 feet as well. So we're not really asking for something really greater than what we currently already have there at the site. And we've worked very well with the community members there. They've been very happy with us, very happy with the level of construction that we did for the first apartment building. And we've only ever heard good things. We're local developers, so I do a lot of the property management myself. If you go on apartments.com, you see that people are very happy with our level of property management. In my opinion, we're very good neighbors to those that are around us. And we look forward to another great development. So that's all I got.
All right, any questions or comments from the Commissioner? See none.
I just had, just while Sean's still standing out there, but I wanted to address the bylaws issue. I believe since the new Title 21 actually formalized required public meetings, that was a requirement of your submittal here, at the same time, they went around and tried to make consistent the bylaws of community councils. So I know there's still some differences how some operate, but there has been an effort by the Federation of Community Councils and the municipality, because of that formalization, to create that consistent bylaw situation. So I haven't been in the Sand Lake Community Council for a while, but I've not seen a council just not operate out of basic bylaw functioning. Just thought I'd state that.
Thank you. Seeing no further questions or comments, what is the will of the body? Would anyone like to put forward a motion or continue discussion? Oh, motion by Commissioner Anderson.
All right, I'll make a motion to approve, in the matter of case 2019-0024, to approve the requested amendment to the special limitations as presented.
And that is seconded by Commissioner Robinson. Would you like to discuss your motion?
Yeah. So in support of the rezone, there's the 9 criteria for approval, which all appear to be met. There was one question I had on approval criteria 3, which the purpose of the B1B didn't exactly include residential, but staff clarified that residential is an allowed use in the B1B. And the 2040 land use plan indicates this area as I want to make sure I get this right, a neighborhood center, and encourages housing and commercial. And I think that the request is appropriate based on those 2 items.
Any other commission members wanting to speak for the motion? Commissioner Robinson?
Yeah, I'm going to support the motion. The location in the neighborhood center is appropriate to have residential and higher density residential development. I'd also state that the Anchorage housing study going back to 2012 and numerous other studies conducted by the municipality has often identified a feasibility challenge for this type of higher density residential despite the stated need that we have for it in our community. And it's not uncommon in other parts of our code to actually look for ways to provide incentives or to at least look for disincentives to residential development. I believe the zoning that allows for the by right height within the B1B for residential, but keeps it at the height limit for commercial is sort of a creative way to look at an incentive and recognize that feasibility challenge. And I'd also just state that over the past 10 plus years, I believe Debenham has been the only market rate builder of this type of housing in our community. Their product is top notch, and I think it would be a nice addition to this part of town and to the Anchorage housing inventory.
Thank you. I would also just like to add that I will be supporting this motion. I do have some concerns on the reporting of the community council voting. However, I think it's a good thing that there was an event going on that brought more people to the community council meeting. It just might have been nice to get more clarification on whether those votes that were tabulated were proxy votes, and especially if there was an abnormal thing happening at the meeting where a lot of attendees who may not have actually been residents. It would have been nice if that was noted in the packet. However, I think the purpose of getting community comments was met, and that people had a chance to speak either by submitting comments directly to us, coming here, or going to the community council meeting. So even though I have some confusion on that process, I think that we still meet our standards. Commissioner Robinson?
Yeah, just to clarify the point, because I think it's an important one, but when I heard the public testimony here tonight that the people there were not their neighbors, I did not take that to mean that they were not residents of the Sand Lake Community Council. I think her comment was that they may not have been from the immediate neighborhood. And I just want to make sure that your finding isn't construed to say that you think there were actually people that voted that were not from the Sand Lake Community Council. I don't know that I heard anything to say that that was the case.
No, and just to clarify for myself, I was more so commenting on the fact that just because there was a lot of people coming who weren't normally at the meetings, that doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad thing. It's good to have an event happen that encourages community members come out, even if they're not the immediate vicinity community members. Seeing no other speakers in the queue, call for a vote. And that motion passes. And there are no items left on the agenda. I think we're setting up our motions. Motion to adjourn by Commissioner Strike, seconded by Commissioner Anderson. Thank you.